Other things that we have, of course, is different kinds of lids. This one is called Gardener's Kitchen, which we see once in a while. Sometimes the grocery outlets have a brand called Mom's. I noticed that Ball has several kinds. This one is a platinum colored one. Also, these are both exactly the same, box the same, but one says Kerr and one says Ball, so they're exactly the same. I have this one here. It's an old Kerr box in that, and let's see. It's a noisy microphone. The old Kerr lids had a gray sealing compound on them. This was called its latex seal, and I did not like this to use them if I was doing anything that had fat in it, like chicken or fish, because when you took the lid off sometime, it would pull off just like bubble gum, just in strips up. And because of that, a lot of times it wasn't sealed properly, and so once in a while I'd lose a jar. So when Altrista took over, then they decided that they wouldn't do that anymore. So all of theirs now look like the red one, like Ball always has been, and that's called a plasticine. It's a little bit harder, so it holds its shape when you're canning. Let's see here. When you are using these lids, you want to, like I said, make sure that they're all of them, no matter what kind they are, they're one-time use of the lids. We do not use anymore the old jars with the bail, the wire on the top that close down and seal the jar with the rubber ring. Those are way outdated. If you have some and you want to use them to store dried food or something in, that's fine. The only time that I ever reuse these is if I'm storing water, for instance. I a lot of times will put my clean my jars in the dishwasher and make sure they've been sterilized, and I'll fill them full of water and then boil these and put them on and to have stored. So, and I've used them many times when the lights have gone out or something, and I've had water on my shelf to use. So it's that's the only time I've used these, because they don't have to be sealed; they just need to be on there. And I use them for dried foods as well. Other things that they have, if you want to get fancy, you can buy it like this. And my daughter quite often uses these with a really small jar. This little flat jar in the front here has some kiwi marmalade in it, but there are jars now that are half that size. And my daughter would use those, and every time she made a batch of jam, she'd do 3 or 4 of those little ones and seal them up. So they made really good Christmas presents. So she'd stack them up different colors and give them for Christmas gifts. So that was an idea that was kind of neat. Okay. I'm going to talk about jams and jellies a little bit, because I've got all that stuff set out here. And then we'll go with some of the other things that take a little more concentration on your part. There are different things that we can use. These things are, this was a Sure Gel. This is the fruit pectin. This is a Sure Gel fruit pectin, but this is a no sugar one, no or low sugar. And because I'm diabetic, I use this, but you can use any of them. And this was the old Ball one, and the new Ball one is this color now. So they've changed. Sometimes I had a person tell me, well, I can't find my fruit pectin anymore, the Ball made, because she was looking for this box instead of the new one. So I finally convinced her they'd change the boxes. And then these are powdered, and this one is a liquid pectin. Now this is not as shelf stable as the powdered one. So if you buy this in the spring, be sure and use it up before the next spring comes along. The dried ones, I've kept them for 2 years, and they're fine. But that's kind of stretching it a little bit, but they do work if they can kept in a good area. If you don't want to do that and you're just making a batch or two, they also put up little things like this. This is pectin as well. That's just for occasional use. Okay. All kinds of fruits can be made into jellies and jams. One little tip for you is if you're picking berries especially, we have beautiful blackberries, Himalayas, and evergreens around that are free for the taking a lot of times. Make wonderful juice and jams and jellies. But when you pick them, you want to pick a few that are still a little bit solid, that are ripe and mature, but not soft, because the riper those berries are, the less pectin is in them. And a lot of people say things, and this is with fruit as well, other fruits. A lot of people will call me and say, well, my jelly just didn't set up, or my peach jam just didn't set up. And I said, well, what were you using? And they said, well, I'm using ripe fruit, you know. But I said, how ripe is it? And a lot of people, you've got a few peaches left in the box and you don't want to get rid of them, or you're tired of eating them, so you decide to make jam or jelly. A lot of times it will not set up because the pectin is basically gone from them. So if you need to keep them, you can freeze it, put a little bit of sugar or Splenda or something like that on them and keep them, and freeze it and use it for a cobbler or something later on. But it's important that you follow those, because a lot of that's, over the years I found out that's one of the biggest reasons that people have their jam and jelly fail to set up. There are instructions online and through WSU and Extension that tell you how to redo your jams and jellies if you really want to go for that. You have to use more sugar and you have to heat them up and use your new lids and everything. So sometimes it's just better to leave it the way it is and use it for syrup or ice cream topping or something like that, you know. So, and that happened to me. Another thing with jams and jellies, Grandma used to use paraffin. This good old paraffin. Paraffin has to be put on when they used to, thin. And sometimes they'd have a piece of fruit stuck up, so they put another little thin layer over the top. And when it's hot, it does seal around the edge. But what happens when things get cold? It cracks. So it pulls away from the side of the jar, and that's how we got mold into our jams and jellies. Now mold is a funny thing. It's like an iceberg. You see the tip of the iceberg on the top of your jam, the mold, and the roots go clear to the bottom of the jar. Now, if you could eat enough of that, it's some kind of cancer that some kind of mold that will cause cancer if you had eaten enough of it. And it takes a lot. I mean, you'd have a couple lifetimes to eat it, but just so I tell people that it can be dangerous, and sometimes it can make you ill, especially little kids. If they're eating that, will get a tummy ache from it. So don't use any of your product, no matter what it is. If it has mold on the top, it needs to be destroyed. Any questions at this point? Yes.
In the lids that you were showing, how long can you keep those? I mean, if you have a box that's unopened and it's 5, 6, 7 years old, is it still safe to use? Or?
You can if it's been kept cool and dry. And the dry is the most important thing. And if when you would go to heat it up to put on the jar, if it doesn't look good or kind of it's got little lines through it or something, then toss them. But other than that, they're generally good for 4 or 5 years on the shelf and in stable area. Any other? Okay.